Hi everybody, today's video is going to be about Darwin and his merry troop of musketeers. So, why did Darwin need a band of musketeers? Well, go back to 1844. Darwin's paper, persuaded by the letter of Wallace, was just presented to the Linnean Society. It was Darwin and Wallace's paper, co-authored and presented by Lyell and Hooker. And then evolution won. The world was turned upside down. Actually, no, it wasn't. Here's a quote from the president of the Linnean Society, Thomas Bell. "The year which has passed has not, indeed, been marked by any of those striking discoveries which at once revolutionized the development of science on which they bear. It is not only at remote intervals that we can reasonably expect any sudden and brilliant innovations." So Darwin didn't really have any impact. He needed to be popularized and eventually defended. So these are where his musketeers come in. Darwin wasn't exactly what everybody thinks he was. The old retired fogey, just sitting down. He wrote his book after 20 years quiet contemplation. No, he was very, very shrewd. And he gathered around him a crack team, like the A-Team, of scientists, young and old, each specialized in their own field, each with something to bring to the table. And these are the people who did his dirty work. These are the people who made Darwin, Darwin, and made Darwinism evolution. Okay, so what was the immediate impact of Darwin? Origin of species. Well, it wasn't really such a big deal because at that time, biblical literalism, unlike today, had been disproved already by geology. Everyone knew that Genesis was a story. No one believed that it was a cold, hard fact. The age of the earth had already been proved, and people, didn't believe that God created this universe in 7 days or 6 days. So, religiously, it didn't really have much of an impact. And the idea that species can transform wasn't new either. A book had come, first of all, Lamarck had come out with his theory of evolution, and a book called Vestiges, which was popular science, kind of like Da Vinci Code of today, had come out and popularized the idea of transformism. Now, that's not to say that people didn't have, there wasn't a critical reception to Darwin. The major problem with Darwin was the natural selection, because it was entirely materialistic and entirely mechanistic and had no place for God. Okay, so now let's talk about who these musketeers were. Who were they? Darwin defenders. They were T.H. Huxley, J.D. Hooker, Asa Gray, and Charles Lyell. Okay. T.H. Huxley was a young anatomist, and he was part of the new young professionalizers, and he was known as Darwin's bulldog, because if there was ever a bad review in the paper or Times or anything, anyone had anything critical to say, Huxley would get in there and get up all in their face and completely shoot them down. So Hooker was another one of the young generation, and he was pretty well known. Asa Gray was a botanist in America, so Darwin knew that he had to spread his ideas and theories to America, and he recruited Asa Gray. And Charles Lyell was the authoritative figure in science. He was part of the old generation, like Darwin's generation, and he represented the establishment. So together, they were a united field. And if you attacked one, you attacked them all, and if you attacked Darwin, you attacked them all. So this was important because they presented a united front. And they all had the capability to question the theory. They weren't just blind followers. In fact, I'll tell you later that each of them actually had a problem, a small problem with the theory, and yet they knew that this was what they had to defend, and this was what the world needed. This was the theory of evolution. And it's also important to understand that the opposition against Darwin was not as organized as Darwin's coalition. They were just random people just, questioning the theory and arguing against it, and then this wall of scientific minds would just shoot him down, just like that. So the opposition was disorganized, and Darwin's defense was a crack team. So what was Darwin's role? He stayed in the background. He was at his farmhouse, and he wasn't an old fogey though, but he was continually writing. Origins went through many different editions, and he would also read the critical analysis of Origin, and then he would send out one of his little minions to go defend him. But it's important to realize that he only wanted to focus on scientific minds. He only wanted to popularize Origin with the scientific community. Hooker and Huxley, well, more Hooker because he was part of the lower classes, understood the importance of popularizing the theory with the common folk. He saw that if you can get the support of the common folk and ingrain it in them, then this theory would become very ingrained in the social consciousness. So Hooker was a very popular lecturer. He was part of the lower classes. He could talk to them. He knew how to communicate with them, and that was his role in popularizing evolution. Okay, so let's review Darwin's Musketeers and what they believed. Huxley believed that the theory was not proven, and that evolution would proceed by jumps. So it was not a uniformitarianism. Lyell and Wallace believed that God had to have stepped in to make us human. So they believed natural selection worked only up until a point. A.C. Gray believed that God intervenes by providing the necessary beneficial mutations. So he wasn't exactly, completely a mechanistic, or he was a mechanist, sorry, he was not a materialist. And Hooker never wavered, but he was never as public. He mostly just stayed with the lower classes, but he was a true Darwinist. And Darwin, he continually revised Origins, and he introduced sexual selection. And it's interesting to note that in the later editions, he eventually became more Lamarckian. Now, I heard that in my class. My professor said that, but I haven't read any, so I'm not exactly sure how he became more Lamarckian, but apparently he did. Okay, so hope you enjoyed that, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.